Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Books, Girls, and Purrs. I'm Leslie. Today I'm going to be reviewing the fourth episode of Interview with the Vampire, The Ruthless Pursuit of Blood with All a Child's Demanding. Just a pre-warning, I'll say this at the top of every video. This is always going to be a spoiler review, and it's not just going to be, ooh, I'm going to sneeze, sorry. A spoiler review of the show episode by episode. It's always going to be a spoiler that includes the books, and my conversations are going to toggle between the first book all the way to I think like the 9th or 10th book, which is Blackwood Farm, because that's what the show decided to do. It's bringing elements of the book to enrich the story. So I just want to say that. So this will always be a spoiler talk for the show and the books. So if you haven't watched the show, if you're not up to speed on the books, you're not going to want to watch this review. Typically I want to talk about the show like scene by scene, talk about what's similar, what's different, clearly everything that I enjoy about it, because I really love the show. This episode, it's going to be a little bit of chaotic because I just watched the episode today and kind of jotted down some quick notes, and I haven't really had a time to let my thoughts breathe on it. I just want to make sure that I put this out there. I just created a review for the first episode as well, so it's going to be a bit jumbled up. We're going to have the first episode review, the fourth episode, and then hopefully this week I'm going to review episode 2 and 3 that I haven't reviewed yet. Okay, so this episode opens up with Daniel Malloy. He's still in Dubai, I believe, is where it takes place in modern times. And oh my gosh, Luis's, I want to call him familiar. He's Rashid. He's a bit of a mystery himself, and sometimes he says things that are quizzical. So they're having a conversation, and one of the things that the show addresses is that Daniel Malloy needs treatment, and here's an example of Louis exerting his power and like overstepping in a way only an immortal can, by arranging so that Daniel Malloy could still have his treatment that he needs, so that they could continue to conduct the interview. So that's something that he's arranged without even discussing it with Daniel Malloy. So most of the episode, Louise sits this out, and instead Daniel Malloy is reviewing Claudia's journals. So I like the inclusion of Claudia's diaries, because in the books, I don't know if the Interview with the Vampire, the book, I think maybe once may have mentioned her diaries, but then as the books jump all the way to book 9, Claudia's diaries come up again. So I'm really glad that they included that into the story. Now that Claudia's journals are available, we're really able to see her life from her point of view, which I think is just such a creative device. And so the narrator changes from Luis to Claudia. So in this version of the story, Claudia ends up on the brink of death because her home was burning down, and it's in large part Luis's fault that she had her life put at risk in the first place. So Luis attempts to save her. He takes her from her burning home and then takes her over to where he lives with Lestat and begs Lestat to make her a vampire. And in typical Lestat fashion, he loves Luis, so he can't really turn him down. So he gives him what he wants. And there's this underlying understanding that Lestat has, which is that, oh, if I make this young girl a vampire, I could keep holding on to my lover a little bit longer, because they definitely are at an impasse in their relationship. So this is definitely them having a child in an attempt to save their relationship. A change from the books is that the character Claudia is a young teenager. She's about 14 years of age. And in the books, I think she was really young. She was a toddler, maybe 4 years of age. And that seems to be a point of some of the fans wanted the character to be young. And it's just not, it's not possible. It's not possible to have someone so young with a demanding schedule. You know, there's child labor laws. And also, do you really want to traumatize a little kid in the name of art? I don't think so. So I have no problem with the fact that the character was aged up to 14. That still leaves room for the making of Claudia to still be a taboo. You know, this is someone that's very young, that is going to be suspended in a time of youth where hormones are raging, you know, you're questioning a lot of things in life. And so that seems to really stick with the character of Claudia. She has this insatiable thirst for blood, much like a teenager would have for food, because they're growing so much. And she really is, I mean, I can't say any better than she is in a really like suspended state when she's made into a vampire. And she truly has this curiosity, and that really is brought up throughout the episodes. And Lestat and Louis don't really have the answers to give her, or they don't want to give her. Immediately there's an established bond when Claudia is made a vampire, because Louis and Claudia can converse telepathically, as where Lestat can't have that same connection because he's made both of them vampires. That's something that's also different from the books. In the books, Louis, I know for sure, I don't remember about Claudia, but either just Louis or both of them can't connect telepathically to anyone. That's not a power that they have. And it's written in the book that Louis and Claudia, when they're made, I think that Lestat's blood, it just isn't strong enough to pass on the powers that he would like for them to have. But that's a big change from the books, and I completely welcome it. I love it, because then you get to see them use their vampiric powers. It's just really cool to see. Lestat and Louis really settle into their domestic life as partners, as parental figures for Claudia. I really enjoy the perspective from Claudia's point of view, because it actually brings so much lightness and really creates a humorous narrative that I really enjoyed. That's a really nice balance from all the first 3 episodes we've seen. Claudia even calls Lestat Uncle Les, and Louis Dada Louis, and I just thought that was hilarious. I just immediately enjoyed that dynamic and her childish point of view. Part of their domesticity is Louis takes out Claudia to go fishing, and it's so funny because this really feels like a moment between a parent and a child that would really happen. At some point you would teach your kid to go fish, and so that's taking place. But the duality is he's also trying to show Claudia that there's another way to exist beyond killing people. So this goes on throughout the show as we see Louis try to impress Claudia with his philosophy about how to move through life as a vampire, and that kind of butts the heads with Lestat and him trying to do the same thing. There are two really other great, joyful moments. One of them that I really enjoyed that wasn't in the book was just showing them as a family going to go see a movie and just getting the giggles because it's actually it's a vampire movie. I can't think of the name right now, but that's just kind of a cute little nod to the vampire lore. And another scene that is in the book that I was really glad they kept is taking out Claudia to pick out her own casket. So in the book, this does happen, and I want to say, I feel like Louis went with her alone, but I don't remember. But they lie to the owner of the establishment and say that, oh, we're not telling her, but our daughter is, has a terminal illness. And that's basically how they get away with getting a casket. It's a really funny scene, and I really enjoyed it. So as time goes on, Lestat and Louis continue to ignore or kind of brush aside Claudia's questions about her not aging, or her questioning like, oh, when am I going to fit into this or that when I get older? Because some years have passed, but not enough for her to really question how she's not changing yet. Like, the ideas are percolating, but it's only been, in this episode, like about 4 years. And they put her in a position to not have any contact with any other kids because, of course, she could only go out at night. And so she's being stripped away of like really important time to socialize. And by this point in the show, Louis gets a call and his mother has passed away. So he once again has to confront his family, who hasn't seen in ages. He has a very contentious relationship with them. And so this is a point, I don't know if it's how much longer it's going to go on, but this is definitely a point where he may never see his family again, is what I get from that. His family wants to inherit the house. His sister Grace wants to inherit the home. She's well aware of who he is and wants nothing to do with him. And so all Louis could do is just agree to turn over the house to them. So there's definitely this divide, and you clearly see that visually. Claudia and Lestat are behind Louis, so they really have his back, as where his family that wants nothing to do with him is in front of him. So there's this clear division when his mom passes. Now we get to the point of the show where Louis had his chance to impress his philosophical ways about how to move around in the world as a vampire, show Claudia how she could eat other things than humans. And at this point, Lestat gets his turn, and he takes out Claudia to terrorize and murder some people on Lover's Lane. But in doing so, he inadvertently has Claudia put in a position where she has to confront a sexual awakening, right? 'Cause she's seeing people being sexual with together, and she just didn't really know at that time that existed in a way. And from there, it sparks something in Claudia where she has this like sexual awakening, so she wants to pursue someone on her own, and this is where we know her downturn begins, because she meets this human boy, tries to dress herself up to look older than she is, and pursue dating someone. And so she's really just having this crush, having those feelings of falling in love for the first time, and really having these really cute, adorable moments with this other young man named Charlie. But unfortunately, there's just so much that she doesn't know. And while she wants to engage in a passionate interaction with Charlie, I think his name's Charlie, he isn't really ready yet. And because I think she just has all this pent up emotion and feelings for him, she accidentally kills him. Because in Anne Rice's world, there's always this between intermingling between sexual feelings and exchanging blood with somebody else. And so this really just is a heartbreaking moment, and Claudia learns that, you know, once the body is dead, she can't bring it back. And this is also a moment where Lestat is really harsh and really just trying to teach her that she cannot have such a deep connection with a human being, because it will always end in disaster. But it's the way that he goes about it that's just so harsh. I really think it was just not the way to talk to her in that moment. But he's been alive for so long. There's only so much humanity he has in himself to try to be gentle about things. He really doesn't have it in him, not for very long. And by the end of the episode, we see Claudia participate in some really harmful behaviors, self-harm. And we see that she's starting to show the very beginnings of losing her mind. And so that's basically the end of the episode. I loved it. I think I always will. The writing is incredible. I love the interpretation. The only thing that I didn't mention earlier, and I want to kick myself because I thought I wrote it down, and I wanted to use the perfect words because it was said so well. When Claudia and Luis are out fishing, she asks about his relationship with Lestat, and basically how does the relationship work between two men. And Luis said, works like love. And I love that they said that. It was just so beautiful and simply said. Like, basically it's similar of saying love is love, basically. I really love that. So that was a highlight for me of the episode. All right, so now that we're done talking about the episode, the similarities, the books, the differences, these are the questions I have. My first question is, Louis has arranged for Daniel Malloy, the interviewer, to have treatment. What I'm wondering is Daniel really going to have legitimate treatment, or is Louis going to give him a transfer of his own blood? Is that possible? I just wanted to throw that idea out there. Secondly, the character Rashid, who's the familiar of Luis, says to Daniel Malloy that he's going to get a notice through his electronic mailbox. I took note of it and I wrote it down, and it's so funny because then moments later the character of Daniel Malloy goes to his computer and makes note of that as well. Like, why is he saying electronic mailbox? The only thing I could think of is maybe because Luis is a vampire. It's probably really hard to transition through time, which is an ongoing theme in the books, right? Vampires are trying to survive through time, and that means that they have to move with the times. They have to engage with the times to stay on top of things. And I think what's going on with that kind of language is that's probably the best way that Rashid could communicate with Luis about how computer technology works, and maybe that's just the best language he could use at the time. And also, if you're working for someone like that all the time, at times you might even forget that you could easily say email to one person and to turn to Luis and say electronic mailbox. That's all I could think about. Trying to think if there's anything else I have to question. I still want to know how they're going to wrap up the season. I still think it's only going to be the first half of the book, because I think the first season is a short order, because I didn't know if it was going to do well or not. But I mean, the show's incredible, and I can't wait to see how the show goes on and on. I feel like the title, Interview the Vampire, is just, I guess, catchy, so they decided to call that instead of the Vampire Chronicles. So yeah, or I wonder if they're gonna do something similar to like with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones covered so many books, and then when that show ended, now there's House of Dragons, right? Which is covering a separate book called Fire and Blood. So I wonder if they're going to do the same thing with this show. Like maybe Interview the Vampire will only be 2 seasons, and then depending on the topic, they'll have a different title for it, branch it off to something else. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I enjoyed the episode. It was such a joy. I love the technique of hearing the narrative through Claudia's point of view, because we don't get that in the books. And also I hope that later on down the line, maybe for the last episode of the season, if it could be from Lestat's point of view, that would be incredible. But yeah, so let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, comment below, and I can't wait to hear what you think. So I guess I'll see you later.